What's up? Welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how to get blurry backgrounds with an entry-level camera and a kit lens. If it's your first time here, my name's Louis, also known as MrCameraJunkie, where I put the fun in photography. Today we're going to be using the Sony A6100 with a 16 to 50 millimeter kit lens. If you are new to photography, I'm going to show you how to get out of auto mode to get the look that you want in your photos. It really doesn't matter which camera you are using. Most kit lenses range around the same, that 16 to 50 millimeter focal length. I chose an APS-C setup because it's much easier to achieve this look with a full frame camera, but I wanted to show that you can still achieve it with a simple kit. The blurry background, also referred to as bokeh, short for Boca Raton. This is when your subject looks like they're popping out at you because there's separation between the subject and the background, that 3D effect. This is achieved by opening up the aperture to its max capacity, allowing the most amount of light through the lens onto the sensor. Now, with some of the technical stuff out of the way, let's get to the fun stuff. Just because we're moving out of auto mode doesn't mean that we need to go full manual. The easiest way to get that Boca Raton look is by switching your camera's dial to aperture priority mode. That's usually marked on your camera with a letter A or AV depending on which camera brand you own. The aperture priority mode is very similar to auto mode, except it gives you complete control over your camera's aperture. The next step is to use your command dial to adjust your camera's aperture, which is represented on the back of your camera as f-stops, which is how we represent how much light is going through the lens and actually hitting onto the sensor. Confused yet? Don't be. All you have to know is that once you're in aperture priority mode, use the dial to open your aperture all the way, as low as it can go. So in my case, that's 3.5 as my f-stop. Now, the easiest way to create separation between your subject and their background is to actually separate your subject from their background. This means you don't want to take photos of people leaning up against walls. If there isn't any distance between your subject and their background, don't expect there to be any in your photos either. Start by moving your subject to a more open area, and you're going to want to have whatever is going to be your background to be at least 20 foot behind your subject. This way it is not possible for your kit lens to have everything in focus. That's because its depth of field will not have the ability to keep everything in focus. Thus, your background gets out of focus and blurs out. Now, the closer you move your subject to the lens, the bigger the discrepancy between your subject and the background. But wide-angle portraits are not flattering at all. For this, I would recommend zooming in with your kit lens. In my case, that's 50 millimeters, which acts like a 75 millimeter lens on APS-C cameras. When zoomed in, you'll notice that the aperture has changed from 3.5 to 5.6. This is what is talked about when you hear people talking about a variable aperture lens. What this means is that as you zoom in with your lens, the minimum available aperture will decrease the more you zoom in. That means you're allowing less light onto your sensor, which means less blur, but not necessarily. If you fill the frame of your camera with your subject and take a much tighter portrait, you will still be able to blur out the backgrounds because the same principles apply. The closer you move your subject to your lens, the more separation between your subject and the background you will see in your images. And outdoors, shooting with natural light, there's plenty of light to blur out the background even at f/5.6. With this being said, a prime lens with a very low aperture will obviously allow you to achieve the Boca Raton look a lot easier. And it will also get you much better images in low light situations. Like I always say, glass before ass. Optics are always more important than the camera body. But once you comprehend how aperture works, you'll be able to make the most out of whatever camera you have in your hands. I've also noticed that most of my viewers are not subscribed. So if you've gotten this far in the video, I would appreciate it if you would consider subscribing. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for buying a Camera Junkie t-shirt. Link in the description. Questions or comments, leave them down below. Like the video if you like it, and I will see all of your beautiful faces in the next video.